What is up, midlife shutters? Welcome to another episode and welcome to my garage. It's kind of organized, but not. It's small, not pretty to look at, but I'm here because I want to talk about tools. Tools I've accumulated over the years. Some tools I found that are worth spending the money on. Some tools I found that are not worth spending the money on. And so we're going to dive in that today. Let's get started. All right, so the first tool I want to talk about is, I think, the most necessary one. If you're going to do home maintenance at home, this is a must, and that is a bike stand. And this is my Part Tools PCS 10.3. I love this stand. I've had it for a few years now, and it has served me well. I did buy a cheap knockoff stand when I first started riding and first started doing some maintenance. That is this bike hand stand. It did okay. It's not bad, but it's very lightweight and it just doesn't have the stability, especially since I got an e-bike. The Part Tool stand handles it with ease. Even with the battery in, it can handle the extra weight. This is just not very stable, and it often, whenever I tried to move the bike around in the stand, it would sometimes start to tip over. So not really that great when you're going to be doing a lot of bike maintenance. I still keep it around because sometimes I do need a second stand when I'm doing certain bike builds, or sometimes for just doing a pretty deep clean bike wash. Sometimes I'll use this and put it in the yard. So what's great about the Part Tools is that I got a couple different trays. One's a tool tray, smaller one for smaller knickknacks, a little bit larger tray down here for larger things. I can hang some water bottles off of it. I got my towel rack, and it's just great to have to organize. Now I will say that this is about 3 times the price of the cheap one, but I will say it is definitely worth it. I find this very valuable, like I said, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of maintenance. I've got 4 bikes to maintain here, so having a good stand is vital and very worth the money. Okay, so another tool I want to talk about is a crown race setter. Now, the Part Tool crown race setter is nice. It is got some weight to it, and so it's pretty easy to use. But at 125 bucks, it's pretty pricey. And what I found is some PVC pipe, basically just was it 1.5 inch PVC pipe, a cap for it. I mean, I think I paid maybe a couple bucks for this, and it does the same job. I'm not a full-time mechanic. I don't work on a ton of bikes, different style bikes, but for MTB bikes, and I would say most gravel bikes, maybe road bikes, I think something like this is perfectly fine. Couple bucks, save you some money if you're gonna do crown race. And I don't do a ton of forks. I mean, I'm not changing out that stuff a lot. Only when I need to replace the seals or anything like that do I need this tool, and it's once in a blue moon. So I thought this was worth saving the money on. So yeah, there's that. So another tool you're gonna need if you're gonna do bike maintenance, especially if you're gonna build bikes, you may not need it often, but you are gonna need it, and that is your headset tool. A setting for your headset cups for the top and bottom. Part Tool 1 of this version is about 90 bucks, and I think I paid maybe 25, 30 bucks for this. So it does pretty much the same job. There's actually an even easier tool that Part Tools makes. It's about $225, and it saves you some time on spinning these things over and over and over. You just basically, it's got notches to kind of set it, the one side of it, and then you just spin the top. Saves a lot of time, but again, if you're doing a lot of bike builds and things like that, totally worth getting the more expensive Part Tool version of this. But honestly, like, I've used this maybe about 4 times in the last few years. So it was worth, getting something I think is better than nothing. I think hammering your cups in, I don't think is a good idea, because if it gets offset, then you got to try to pry it out, and then you run the risk of scraping somewhere around the headset or damaging the cup or anything like that. Don't really recommend that. Save you some time and money and just get kind of a brand X version of the Part Tool one of this. All right, let's talk about shock pumps. Now, shock pumps, when I first started, I mean, obviously it's something you need when you have a full suspension or even just a hardtail and you got your front fork. So you need something to kind of dial in that pressure. And I went all out. I spent $80-something on a digital pump, and it was fine for the first month. And then like about 2 months later, it broke. The digital readout broke. I mean, just stopped working altogether. And so I was like, well, that was $80 spent that I'm not gonna get back. So I found out that I'm not a racer. I don't need the exact PSI. I just need a good, 5 PSI range. And I just got a basic, this one's a Gio, I guess how you say it, G-I-Y-O off of Amazon. It's 30 bucks and it's a regular analog readout, but it's fine, does the job, no frills, perfect. So if you don't need anything that's you gotta be exact for, just get you an analog one. It's $20, $30, you can buy one of these and you're done. Okay, a chain whip tool. Now, chain whip tools are used if you're gonna work on your wheels, your cassette, or change out your cassette at all. And these are really needed to remove the cassette, because if you try to remove it with just a regular tool, pulling the cassette off, you'll notice it just spins and spins and spins. You need to have something to hold it. You can try holding it with your hand and glove. I would not recommend doing it with just your hand. You're just gonna chew up your hands on those cassette teeth. But you can try a glove. I tried a thick glove, but then I started chewing up my gloves, my work gloves, and I didn't like that. So, chain whip tools. Now there's a couple ones you can get. I did get a cheap one first, and I found it pretty flimsy and not really confidence inspiring, especially when I'm relying on that handle really holding that cassette. So I went ahead and spent the money on the Part Tools. This is the SR 12.2. And the other cool thing about it, it's got the actual socket, I guess, hole for if you have, once you loosen it up with a torque wrench, then you can just turn it over and then just finish spinning it off. Another tool used for this is on my RockShox. If I want to remove the air cap on the fork on the CSU, it's the same size for that. So it's got multi-uses, and I think it's worth the money. I don't remember how much it is, but I think it's worth spending the little bit extra money on the Part Tools version versus the cheap version. It's just my opinion, but yeah, I think it's worth it. Further along on the fork maintenance, if you install a new fork, one of the things you have to do is install a new star nut. Now, there's multiple ways I've seen on YouTube people doing this, and I've even bought a cheaper tool to try to install a star nut, and it didn't go well. So I went ahead and spent the money on the Part Tools TNS4. It's called a threadless nut setter, but it's to set your star nut. And what I found the difference between this one and the cheap one was this one is very well made. It's got some bulk to it. It's got some weight to it. And that assists in setting that star nut, because it cups around the steer tube pretty well. And it's pretty simple. If you don't know, you just thread on the star nut, set it onto your fork. This thing will pop up and you just hammer it in and you're done. It takes literally like 30 seconds and I love it. Very well worth the money versus the cheaper one. I'm trying to remember how much I spent on this. What was the price on this? Okay, so it's 50 bucks. Not cheap. That was more than I thought. I don't think I paid that much because it's been a few years. The cheap one I bought was about 20, so it was a price jump. I think I paid like 45, but again, everything's gone up in price lately, so I'm not surprised that it's over 50 bucks. But anyway, I think it's worth it. Star nut, you got to get right, because if you don't get it right, it's not fun trying to reset it. and also, often enough, if you screw it up, you've ruined the star nut. So you need to have it, and I've screwed up star nuts. So save yourself the frustration, and just do it right the first time. And that's why this tool right here, the thread setter from Park Tool, is worth the money. All right, so this is more like a garage feature than a tool, but I want to kind of talk about the steady rack. The steady rack, I have got 3 of them. My 4th bike, I don't have any room to put a 4th one, so that's why my 4th bike is not up here. But I do have 3 of the bikes up here, and they all use steady rack. Now, before I used kind of like the coated hooks, and those were okay, but it put a lot of pressure on the wheels and the spokes, and if you don't get it right, you can kind of yank on it and maybe damage a spoke or something like that. I didn't like that potential. I didn't do it, but potentially that's what could happen. And I didn't like that idea. So I like the fact that the steady rack, it's easy. It holds it by the front wheel. I feel better about my bikes hanging this method. Now, back when I got them, they were just right under $90. Now I know they're over $100. Again, inflation. But again, I think it's worth having them versus just hooks or anything else that hangs where you got to hook it into the wheel. I don't like that. Steady rack, definitely worth the money. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is torque wrenches. Now, torque wrenches are a necessity even if you're doing minor bike maintenance, because you're going to remove brakes, brake handles. You need to also have a torque wrench to regularly check your frame bolts, frame nut, anything that's screwed in. If you just remove your wheel, you need to make sure it's torqued. And there's lots of different torque wrenches, a lot of digital ones you can get. If you're needing to get things done quickly, like if you're a bike shop or things like that, yes, I see the value of it, because you just set the number and you just do it and just walk around. You don't have to worry about looking at it and things like that, and trying to set the tool itself. But honestly, like most people, I think just a regular torque wrench is good. Now, they come in different sizes. I actually have 3. I have a travel, one of them is just a travel one. The other 2 are because this one, like this one here, only goes to 20 Newton meters. My other one goes up to 150 Newton meters. And so I need the larger one for bottom brackets. And when I'm doing cassettes and things like that, I need a little bit more than just 20. So this set, I think, was $30. And then this larger one, the one that goes up to 150 Newton meters, this is a 1/2-inch torque wrench, and I think I paid like $35 for this one. So not terribly expensive. They can get expensive. Like I said, the digital ones are pretty, pretty pricey. And then you can also get ones that just have higher Newton meters. And, again, those can get pretty pricey. But again, torque wrench is a torque wrench. Make sure it's just highly rated. I have no problems with the bike tool set, the Pro Bike tool set. I have a smaller one. This is my travel torque wrench, but it only goes up to 6 Newton meters. But I take this with me when I travel, because sometimes you need to move things around. Also, most things in the cockpit don't go above 6 Newton meters, so that's fine. So that's torque wrenches. All right, that is it. That's all I want to talk about today. There's lots of different tools and things like that I could go into. This video would take forever, but those are just some of the things that I found that were worth spending the money on or not worth spending the money on when it comes to bike tools. If you're doing bike maintenance and you don't really want to break the bank, then I think these are some of the tips that I found that are very useful and valuable to me. Again, it just depends on you. You may not agree with some of the choices that I make, and that's okay. You might disagree with some of the things that I skimped on and you find valuable. But those are the things that, for me, work great, and I hope that little bit of knowledge will help you out in the future for you and your bike maintenance. If you enjoyed this video and like this type of content, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to join me on this journey, me learning, figuring things out, hitting new trails, all about getting on a bike and staying on a bike in your midlife, then hit that subscribe button and that bell notification. And I would love for you to support this channel in any way. There's lots of different ways. You can give a super thanks. There's some merch down below you can click on. Any of that goes back into this channel, helps me continue to make videos for you. As always, live, learn, and send it. It is never too late to start. See you guys later.